if we had a big enough emotional reaction to the refuseniks or to the vaccine that caused the refuseniks to gain national publicity, then I would say, okay, then that could manifest over the period from the 15th to the 25th, but we would, under those circumstances, we would have to have some triggering kind of an event to shift the language. Otherwise, we would still continue along in the same sort of linguistic trend if you think about it in a particular way. Make sense? In other words, if the refuseniks or the vaccine is the issue and it popped out on the 25th, okay, I could see it. But the intervening 10 days means that there's this language hole, so to speak, where that wouldn't really develop.
That's interesting.
But we do even, by the way, see that there's going to be a much greater impact on the social order from the flying pig flu in January, February of next year. Unfortunately, a lot of it is associated with the Winter Olympics. And I think that the powers that be are going to use that as some kind of a vector. It's going to be an interesting kind of a propaganda issue that they've got to deal with, too, because they'll have them... we may run into a situation where they don't prevent public gatherings, but health department people would advise it, and they don't prevent these public gatherings because they're in the process of promoting the Olympics.
So that can work very much to their favor because, see, if you don't let us protect you, look what happens.
Right, right.
So come into the fold.
Yeah, I'm one of those people that after I've investigated the statistics involved, I'm convinced that vaccines are useless as a preventative method, and even the Salk polio vaccine can be demonstrated to have originated and introduced to the population after polio had peaked and was extremely weakened and waning within our populace, and so it didn't do any good. And even the highly touted smallpox vaccine is not a vaccine of smallpox, but is in fact a vaccine of cowpox, and so cannot really be classified within the same live virus vaccines that we're dealing with now. And of course now the horrid thing of the inclusion of thimerosal in vaccines is, quote, a preservative, and then there's even aspartame in some of the definitions of these, or the descriptions of the vaccines. And then they're using these modifiers or augmenters, these chemicals that basically the theory is that they're going to have to rush production. And so what the big pharma is saying is that, well, we got to rush production, so instead of giving you 20,000 live viruses in your vaccine, we're only going to give you 10,000, but we're going to give you these other chemicals that'll just kick the hell out of your immune system so that it'll take those 10,000 viruses and make them into 20 or 30 or 40,000 really quick. So it's like, okay, we're going to make you very ill very rapidly.
It's just mind-boggling. I mean, and the whole system has numerous ways of built-in things that reduce the power of the immune system in humans all over the planet. I mean, it's subtly poisoning, being poisoned in the food chain, in the air, in the water.
Some not so subtly.
Toothpaste,
Right.
everything it's going on. So it's no wonder people are, not having good health and not having energy
or good
and
thinking.
all of that.
Well, you actually have to work at it now, whereas before, in a previous generation, at even an advanced age of late 50s, early 60s, you would have just taken that health for granted if you'd lived that long.
That's true.
But these days, everybody is degraded, and I'm shocked at the level of the pollution of the food body and the social body, if you will, of even the young people nowadays. And it kind of, I mean, it's very terrible to think about it, but it's been somewhat effective. Then you read stories about 110 parts per million of gallium floating around in the air in Phoenix. What is gallium doing in the air? Well, we know where it's coming from, even though it's officially denied. So that's another thing, too, about the chemtrails. Again, our language suggested back last year that we would run into an issue of chemtrails this summer, and we saw the language pop up. We saw that there was officially accepted language. History Channel has laid bare some of the issues of chemtrails, plus now the government itself is saying, oh, by the way, we're going to shoot up this bomb in the atmosphere and spray out all these little aluminum particles in the ionosphere to see what it'll do, basically. And but it's just a more advanced form of chemtrails. And we'd come to the language about a year ago or so that said that in the summer of 2009, powers that be were going to face a decision point to either abandon chemtrails or to escalate. And we now see, of course, that they've chosen to escalate.
That's been kind of obvious around here. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had a shocking, to me, I mean, just a revelation. I had to come by train from Portland and all the way up to the southern Puget Sound. Through all the southern counties, nothing at all. And then as we're approaching Puget Sound, I can see the planes and the chemtrails as they're spraying. So they apparently don't care about southwest Washington, but they do from, Mason County up to the other side of Seattle. And they're heavily spraying over this area. Of course, this is the population center, so.
Well, southwest area, I forget the name of the little tiny community,
Oakville.
the area. Oakville had got the globs that rained.
Oh, yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
That's
nasty stuff, yeah. And I'd also seen where the eagle population along I want to say the Cowlitz, but I'm not really sure, one of the southern rivers here, down in Onalaska area, the eagle population there, the nesting pairs was greatly reduced. And this particular biologist I know, who's a bird aficionado, he went to the trouble of scaling down a cliff to where he was within eye level of some of the nests, and had seen that they were indeed covered with that brown gooey stuff. And so he doesn't know if it's a question of the eagles not being there, or if they were just disgusted about what we've done to their nests and they relocated. As a rule, they don't. They have a tendency to come back to the same roosting areas over and over again.
Yeah, but, well...
Can't blame them.
Nope.
There's a good YouTube video on that Oakville blob thing. It's just fascinating. It had human white blood cells in it. It was just the most mysterious mixture. But the report I heard, anyway, on the flu shots was that typically only 100 million Americans take a flu shot, so it's like only 1/3 of us take a flu shot. I was happy to hear it was not in the majority.
Right.
But they ordered 195 million doses.
Yeah.
And then they were all happy about, the adult can only, we can stretch this because you don't need all 3 shots, so we can dose twice as many people with what they can get, and
save money.
So I guess they're
scary, yeah.
You can see there's the bottom line going, well, let's predict in our budget, 195 million, and that many will get them twice as many people with their flu shots as normal, over half of the population of the United States,
Well, and if we're going to follow 1976, they'll be very shocked at how few people actually line up for them.
Yeah.
And the the vaccine and the whole idea of it is just, it brings it back to the idea where you think the only point, from Big Pharma viewpoint of this, the only point is the extraction of money. But from the powers that be, one step above them, the only point is the weakening of the immune system and the degradation of the populace, such that you're going to have a lot of people die.
Yeah.
And we're already seeing that the illnesses take hold in the First Nations people of northern Canada area as they run into the Tamiflu and the other vaccines. And it's only a matter of time here.
Yep.
So, but the whole issue of vaccines, and you start looking into the statistics of it, it's actually rather shocking. You go and look at a particular subgroup. A lot of this information is freely available if you're willing to just sit there and root around in government computers. So, for instance, you can start at the CDC and then piggyback to the state health departments. And you go to a particular state and you see that, they have the data for 37 children that have died of the swine flu. And you look into the data and you find out that, of the 37 here, 24 were in some way dealing with an extremely compromised immune system, some form of palsy or epilepsy or something that required the administration of an anticonvulsant drug. What are anticonvulsants? Well, one of the things that they're known to do is to strip both CoQ10 and vitamin D from your system. And so if the child is already vitamin D lacking and then further has to take an anticonvulsant drug and finds that their vitamin D levels are further degraded, as well as their CoQ10 levels, the coenzyme Q10, which is a very key substance. they're just literally sitting there waiting for the next opportunistic disease to come along and finish them off. So the introduction of a virus to these people, whether it's through a vaccine or otherwise, is not going to be well received by that compromised immune system. But it also means at a broader level that no, it was not a case of 37 healthy children dying of the swine flu suddenly. And in fact, the percentage of the children that had compromised immune systems was actually near 80%. And then you'd almost have to say 100% because the others are living under chemtrails and such.
There you go. Wow.
Okay, until the next time with some more good news.
Yeah, this is good news. We're encouraged by
we
this.
We are encouraged.
And we're also half past out of our time.
Oh, boy, we ran into that evaporating time.
We're hitting the wall, yeah.
Thank you, Cliff.
Sure thing. Talk to you guys.